Well, of course, the big news is the referendum in Catalonia and the debate on France 24 here saying defying Madrid, Catalonia's independence referendum. Mainstream media in general going nuts over the heavy-handedness of the security forces in Spain. Shocking footage shows Spanish firefighters beaten by riot cops after they formed human shields to protect independence protesters. Now, I'm not going to defend the activities of the Spanish riot police in any way because they are heavy-handed. There's no Spanish police in general are. If anybody was watching the Vuelta, the Spanish cycle race, some of the treatment of people watching that at the time by the Spanish police was pretty heavy, unjustifiably so. But nonetheless, the mainstream media right across the board going nuts over this. And in fact, even some people that you might think should know better, Patrick, going nuts over this as well. Rajoy's crackdown on the vote ends with 844 injured, 90% voting for independence. But the question is, Patrick, what is this? What is this independence issue with Catalonia? So first of all, let's just have a quick look at where it is. It's the red hatched area up in the top right-hand corner of Spain there, obviously Barcelona being the main city, and a number of other cities along the coast. It's been a bone of contention or an issue of contention for a long time, but the question is, Pat, who is driving this? And I think this is obviously a foreign language, the Spanish headline, but I think everybody can understand what it says. Mm-hmm. It's becoming more and more clear who is behind this, and it is George Soros.
Yeah, this is a tough issue for a lot of people, Mike, and a lot of people generally want to support this move for autonomy, this move for independence on a cultural argument, I guess. That they have a different culture than the rest of Spain, and that should be recognized by the world. But when you have luminaries like George Soros, who has financed color revolutions all over the world, and who've almost always been categorically in the interests of Wall Street, of U.S. corporations, of the sort of the globalist agenda, if you will, which is really antithetical. It's against the whole concept of the nation state. It is designed in many of these cases to break down existing nation states, making them weaker, and that just really opens the door for other larger entities to sort of fill that vacuum of power, like Brussels, for instance.
Yes. Well, let's just reinforce Soros's influence here. This article from 2014, Europe blasts Spain over torture record. And this was Soros, the Open Society Foundation, commenting on this. And this one, how Catalonia became Spain's laboratory for smarter drug policies, Patrick. And this is from the Open Society Foundation.
This is right off of the Open Society. So you can see this drugs legalization issue, again, something that a lot of people will support on more libertarian grounds, Mike. Very popular issue. And so, but it's being used as a kind of an entree by the likes of George Soros in order to gain a foothold in a number of countries like Uruguay, like Catalonia. In the case of Uruguay, I'm just going to add as a caveat that George Soros's interests in a company like Monsanto, who is wanting to patent cannabis, and they did their first trial where? In Uruguay, after George Soros had pumped millions of dollars into the legalization of drugs campaign in that country in South America. In comes Monsanto with the first pot GMO trial. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so.
Right, well, we're going to come on to more of this a little bit later, because of course the question is why would they be interested in Catalonia so much? But anyway, the other question in my mind was, is Catalonia actually looking for independence, or is it not pro-EU? Does it actually want to remain part of the European Union? So we get a clue here from Politico, whose headline is "Pro and Anti-Independence Catalans Call for EU Help." So both pro-independence and the anti-independence sides of the argument, both running to Brussels as soon as they get into trouble. And let's move on. This article from Telesur, Catalonia, independence from whom? What's this about?
This is an excellent article here. I mean, it's one of the best sort of all-around analysis I've managed to read on this topic. This was actually published a few years ago. And what it does is it really shows this article shows the clear link between those who are pushing the Catalonian independence movement for a while now, including members of the Green Party, who are also European members of Parliament, and how they are also pushing the federalization of Europe. In other words, the United States of Europe. And here is a quote from this article. The number one candidate from Junts, this is the coalition of parties there, Romiva, is also he's a member of the Green Party in Catalonia, is considered independent, but is also a member of the European Parliament between 2004 and 2014. During his years in European Parliament, he heavily promoted the idea not just of an independent Catalonia, but also a federalist European Union by signing the Spinelli Group Manifesto, and one of the first major federalist movements in Europe. So these are the movers and the shakers of the United States of Europe, are also the movers and shakers of the Catalonian independence movement. This is very interesting, Mike.
Okay, so let's look at something else, and that was the vote in 2005 on whether to adopt a constitution for the European Union. And if we look at the Spanish vote as a whole, you can see that very, very popular. The European Union Constitution was extremely popular at that time, unlike in France and the Netherlands and in Ireland. But 80%, more than 80% in the majority of Spain voting for it. In Catalonia, the vote wasn't quite so high, in the 60 to 65% range on average. But the other thing that was interesting about this, Patrick, if we look at the turnout, in Catalonia, the turnout was pretty low.
Is one of the lowest in all of Spain, basically. So they didn't the Catalonians didn't care too much about independence from Europe. They voted, 60, 70%. Those who did turn out, very low, slightly lower turnout in the rest of the country, voted for a European charter. So handed their sovereignty away. And so this is a great graphic. But, at the end of the day, Mike, my final comments on this is, those who are talking about now fighting in the streets for an independent Catalonia. So we can see from what we've just shown you there from those results, where were they when their sovereignty was being handed over to Brussels, along with Spain's sovereignty? And so we're talking about allowing Brussels to write laws, adopting the single currency. Those weren't issues for these people, but all of a sudden this is. So our question is this a real bona fide, real organic movement, or is this being driven by money, by much more powerful interests, NGOs, and international governance organizations, let's say, and associations who have a vested interest in breaking up the nation state? Because at the end of the day, Mike, this is what it's about. It's about weakening the concept of the nation state. And who benefits from this? When you have a collection of weak, smaller states, certainly a super state has a lot more power, finance, and overall influence, is going to be able to lord over those many small states.
And of course, we should remind ourselves that this issue of breaking up nations into smaller regions, absolutely a European movement, but it's happening in the UK as well through our own government, which wants to break up the UK not only into smaller nations, Scotland being one of them, but into regions and into city regions. But let's just remember that, of course, when Scotland had its independence referendum a year or two ago, Nicola Sturgeon absolutely determined to stay within the European Union at that time. So, in fact, independence was not on the cards.
No, independence from the UK, but then not independent from Europe. So then this is the similar situation.
Same situation
we see in Catalonia. Why would a smaller state? Here's the question: why would a smaller state want to be smaller, maybe less, drop their affiliations of the past, create tension in the process, but then belong to a bigger club? What are the advantages to this? Is this a psychological component to this, or is this just the natural movement towards small states? This is the question.
I would say that it's the former. And one of the interesting things about Scotland, of course, is it's used as a pilot for many changes, political changes, for societal changes, for changes in education, and so on. And Catalonia, it seems, is absolutely the same type of same type of area, because it's being used as a pilot for many things as well. So here we've got Smart Catalonia, Catalonia's Smart Region Strategy, and this is from the government of Catalonia. So this is the people that have held this referendum. And if we just look through it, this is the type of thing they're really wanting to promote: the Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, cyber-physical systems, wearables, smart robots, drones, mobile, cloud, cybersecurity, 3D printing. Some of these things have merit, but put in a particular context and particular political context, particularly if you've got Soros-type influence in here, then perhaps this isn't such a positive thing. We just look at the next one here. This is Smart Catalonia, Fields of Action and Framework. So they're absolutely promoting Catalonia as the test bed for much of this stuff.
Yeah, this is the test bed. They boasted that Catalonia is the lab. It's the lab for the smart region. This is the prototype smart city. So in terms of the city-state agenda or the city and regional agenda, Catalonia would be a city hub for a major region in the new Europe, which would be no nation-state borders, but divided into regions, which you've talked about many times on this program, Mike.
And just to reinforce this, of course, who's driving it? Europe 2020. So this is the European Union, European Commission once again. So there's not really much more to be said on this.
No, this is in conjunction with Brussels, this program. So Catalonia is not just any burgeoning independent state, that they have plans for Catalonia in Brussels. And so is it being used as a wedge here? Is it being used as the tip of the spear of a new movement in a new reformed Europe, a new federalized Europe? Is that what we're seeing here, Mike?
I think it is.